My name is Jenny Young. I'm originally from the United States and I live now in Belfast, where I've been living and working for the last 4 years. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experiences with storytelling, both at home and now here in Belfast particularly. I would say that I do feel like a stranger in Northern Ireland to an extent, but certainly feel more and more welcomed each and every day, which makes me feel much more part of the fabric. So storytelling for me has been really helpful in terms of getting to know people where from being from a different place and coming to live now in Northern Ireland. And it would be because of my background in storytelling, I would have a strong understanding that no matter where we come from, we're all related in one way or another. And because of that, storytelling is one tool that's been quite useful for me in developing that connection between people, myself and others here.
Tell me how.
I use storytelling to connect with others, generally speaking, being the stranger or someone that I would feel quite familiar with, in terms of getting to know what it is in their essence that connects us together as people, what it is that we have shared, and develop a certain level of compassion in terms of what people have experienced and what myself has experienced in life.
Tell me a little.
At the moment, I use storytelling in terms of my personal development with another stranger to Northern Ireland named Khulud, who moved here from Jordan. And the two of us meet regularly to do a language exchange, which we refer to as a cultural exchange. And we would get together and meet, and we would spend half our time speaking in English and half our time in Arabic, in a way to develop our skills, to feel more comfortable here in Northern Ireland, and to share in our experiences of being an other or an outsider in this country here.
Can you explain how that?
I would say that storytelling is a structured way of people interacting. So it takes a really natural process of sharing with one another and telling stories to one another and really connecting to people, which would happen every day on a regular basis. But what the storytelling process does is it adds structure and it adds regulation to what you do to make sure that it's done in a way that's effective in a sense, that has a particular purpose.
Is there an ethic?
There's certainly ethics involved in telling stories, but particularly involved in listening to stories and how you handle the stories that you come across in your daily life, or indeed in your work, as I would now encounter stories. And ethically speaking, because stories have such a great potential to connect people together, they also have a great potential to unlock an emotional feeling that can be quite powerful and can lead to damage if not handled correctly through a storytelling process. For me, storytelling became more of a process formally in Northern Ireland, based on Towards Understanding and Healing structure. And they delivered a course. It was an 8-week course that is based on a framework of ethics and storytelling that focused on positive encounter dialogue and storytelling as a tool. So whereas people, particularly in Northern Ireland, use storytelling as a way of connecting and sharing, we use it as a tool in a quite structured way, and it would have quite rigid ethical boundaries, in the sense that we would be very clear about what information we're how we're handling the sensitive information that we're coming in contact with.
I'm going to ask.
My training in storytelling involved an 8-week course that was delivered by Towards Understanding and Healing, developed on a co-facilitation basis, which in Northern Ireland goes along a cross-community basis, and it was delivered with an understanding to develop skills for positive encounter dialogue and storytelling within ethical frameworks. So the training that I underwent here in Northern Ireland related to positive encounter dialogue and storytelling as a tool for bringing people together and developing a real sense of empathy and compassion, particularly related to the conflict situation here in Northern Ireland. And what that means is that there are special ethical and situational circumstances that are ensured to make sure that the process goes smoothly. One of those ways would be through co-facilitation, which is done on a cross-community basis. So my training, which was an 8-week long program, was delivered by 2 different trainers, one who was from a Protestant background and the other from a Catholic background. And that was to help everybody in the group, which was a diverse group of people from Northern Ireland and elsewhere, feel quite comfortable that there was diversity in facilitation. Well, I would say that no matter how comfortable you feel with a particular group of people, there's diversity within each and every individual, and storytelling gets to the heart of that. And it helps us connect in terms of our shared experience and shared sense of compassion for one another.
Can you give
At the moment, I'm engaged in a storytelling process that's called a 5-decade storytelling program. And it involves a group of women who would be 50 plus, but it would be an older generation. We start with the 60s and we go through five decades discussing how the Troubles impacted upon people's lives. And really, the heart of the project is to get in touch with how people lived their everyday lives, and the Troubles were just small bits and pieces of that. And what we would do is we would speak to people in a group setting and also in one-to-one settings, and we would discuss people's life stories and provide a platform for people to discuss how they lived their lives and what happened to them in their life. And it really gives people a sense of feeling listened to and quite worthy. In the storytelling process, there's definite benefits for both the listener as well as the speaker of the story. And for myself, having been a participant as well as a facilitator of the process, I would say I've been equally touched by listening as well as by telling because of the strong emotionality of the story. So what's become quite popular or what's become quite important in the storytelling process has been providing a voice where people can be heard and providing new stories that can maybe counter what you have already perceived in your mind. And it's a way of people really changing their perceptions and getting to know others and developing a sense of compassion that goes across groups and boundaries and really strikes within a chord of humanity. Well, storytelling definitely has some challenges in terms of people feeling the need to repeat stories or maybe tell stories that are of a certain dimension or a certain amount of suffering. And sometimes people can feel quite locked in their stories if they've told it many times, or if they're telling a story that maybe responds to a group thought of what their story's meant to be. But in actuality, if storytelling is done in a very controlled way, and if the correct things are emphasized throughout the process, what comes from the storytelling is really a true sense of self that maybe goes beyond whatever people had already perceived of themselves. Because we're dealing with such traumatic information in terms of our storytelling process, and we're dealing with individuals who have experienced great levels of suffering, it's important that the storytelling process is both helpful for the person telling the story as well as the others listening, and to ensure that people aren't being used for their stories and that the storytelling process can be quite healing for the storyteller. It's important that the process dives deeper than maybe what the original storyline or the common storyline maybe tells. So my name's Jenny Young. Storytelling for me is one of the greatest tools in terms of connecting to other people. When I was first introduced to the tool, I was introduced to a term, Mitakuye Oyasin, and that was on a Native American reservation, and it means we are all related. And I think if there's one tool in the world that can show that we're all related and develop a sense of compassion among each and every one of us, it's storytelling, because it breaks down deeper than what you might think and see, and it goes down to what you feel. Because I come from a different place in the United States, I would bring a different set of stories with me here to Northern Ireland, and I would bring a different understanding with me. And that diversity has been quite useful, both in facilitating the storytelling process, but also participating and creating a space that can have a broader discussion. And I think that it's been quite beneficial to me to come to Northern Ireland and learn such a professionalised way of storytelling so that those skills can likewise be used in other places as well.